Okay, come on, you two.
What? Why? Where are we going? Where are you
Where are we going?
I don't appreciate this. You interrupted my live
You
feed
better
on
appreciate this.
Facebook
You're being
for
given a
this.
second chance right now. The two of you were caught cheating on the entrance exam here at King's College of Carnival Knowledge.
And just who are you?
And who am I?
Yes.
I'm Grand Marshal Mardi Gras.
Who?
I knew that was coming. Grand Marshal Mardi Gras. I'm a disciplinarian security for this school.
A disciplinarian.
Disciplinarian, you don't understand it? Google it. Now, both of you have been caught cheating on this exam. And this is the deal. Professor Carl Nivale has decided to check you out, ask you some questions, and see if you're worthy of a second possibility makeup exam to enter this college. So I suggest you behave and take lots of notes. Okay? And give him the respect he deserves. Now, you can also use your cell phones, since you millennials are so clever with your cell phones. And by the way, thank you all for coming here today. We appreciate having past alumni here to help these two deal with this whole entire situation. And you can also use your cell phones. Just make sure that the ringers are off, and if you want to take photos, please feel free to do so, as long as it's not flash photography and you share them on the professor's Facebook page, right? Now then, are you both ready for this?
I guess so.
You. How about you, Wednesday Addams?
So, are they going to help me cheat?
They're not here to help you cheat. They're here to help you learn.
They're going to help me cheat.
They're
Yeah, all right, let's do this.
You sure?
Yeah.
Let's start this sucker! Right this way! Have a seat, please. The sooner the better. Aim for here, honey. Aim for here. Focus. Now then, I'm sure you're going to have an awful lot of questions, since you're both so very clever with writing the questions down for this exam. Yes?
Whatever you mean by that.
Whatever do I mean? I mean that when Professor Carnival gets here, you better give him your undivided attention and the respect and dignity he deserves to allow you to have a second chance to enter King's College of Carnival Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yes,
Long title.
Google is your friend. Now then, before he gets here, do you have any questions of me?
What's the name of this school?
King's College of Carnival Knowledge.
What?
King's College of Carnival Knowledge.
What's his name?
Did I lose you? Which syllable did I lose you?
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do
You
this.
sure?
No.
Well, he'll be here just about any moment now.
Grand Marshal!
Oh, yes, Professor.
Have they arrived yet?
Yes, they have, as well as our beloved alumni.
Greetings, Reveliers! Thank you all so much for being here with us today, students and alumni. Now, for all of you students, for attending today's special class, you will be receiving 10 additional points on your final grade.
Oh, 1, 2, 3. Woo!
And for all of you alumni, you'll have the choice of chicken or fish at the annual dinner.
1, 2, 3.
Now, let's talk about our two wayward Reveliers in training.
Yes.
I believe this is Revelier Baldwin. Is that correct?
It's not Wednesday Addams.
Sir?
I'm not sure.
Well, probably not. She looks like Thursday night.
Yes.
And you must be Revelier Solomon, correct? Yes. All right. We are here today because you have been caught cheating on your entrance exam.
1, 2, 3.
Revelier Baldwin, care to share with the entire class how you were caught cheating?
Fine. So, okay, I may have face painted the answers on the back of the head of a fellow student.
And how were you caught?
He wore a hat.
That's what you did?
What you did?
Well, at least I hid my answers
Where?
in a slice of king cake.
And what happened?
I ate it. It was good though.
And choked on the answers.
I tried.
Enough. Ordinarily, cheating is not allowed at King's College of Carnival Knowledge. Ordinarily, you would have both been expulsed immediately. However, because your method of cheating was so very, very carnival in nature, Grand Marshal Mardi Gras and I have decided to give you the opportunity to take a short tutorial with us today. And if you do well in today's tutorial, we may allow you to have a makeup exam.
May.
All makeup. and all that implies. Now, this is your time. Your fellow classmates and the alumni are here to assist you, so I suggest that you make the best usage of this time possible. Now, what questions do you have?
Well, so I noticed there's a lot of green, purple, and gold everywhere. Well, why those particular colors?
Well, that's actually a very good question. First off, I'd like to ask all of our students and alumni, who can tell us the meaning of the color purple? And the first one that makes a Whoopi Goldberg reference is expelled. Can anyone tell me what purple represents in Carnival?
Justice.
Justice! Absolutely right. Very good, Reveille. Purple represents is representative of justice. Now, what about the color gold?
Faith.
Power.
Close but no banana.
Power.
Power! That's absolutely correct. Gold represents power, and green represents
Faith.
That's it! Now you're called up. Purple, green, and gold are the official colors of Carnival. These colors were given to us by the School of Design, commonly known as the Rex Organization, in their very first parade in 1872. However, it wasn't until for another 11 years before they assigned the meanings of the colors to the flag. And there's your answer. What else would you like to know?
Aren't Carnival and the Mardi Gras the same thing?
No! No. Did you find us on a matchbook cover?
That's right.
Who here can tell us the difference between Carnival and Mardi Gras?
Mardi Gras is the day and Carnival is the season.
Absolutely correct. What's your name, Reveille?
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle! Beautiful job, Gabrielle! Reveille Gabrielle is absolutely correct. Carnival is the name of the season. Mardi Gras is the final day of that season. And the very first day of the Carnival season is what, class?
It's the 12th night.
12th night. Absolutely. 12th night.
What's a 12?
What's 12?
I'll give you a clue. It has to do with a certain holiday song with which I'm certain you're familiar.
Don't tell me it's the 12 days of Christmas.
I won't, but it is.
Okay.
It absolutely is. Now, I don't care what they tell you on ABC Family every year. The 12 days of Christmas begins after Christmas, as all of us know, and goes all the way through until January the 6th, which is why we call it 12th night. It is also the only date in all of Carnival that remains constant every single year. You're ready to just leave it at that? Everything else moves.
Why?
Well, because Carnival is directly connected to Easter.
Easter.
Those of you who are familiar with church doctrines, Easter and Carnival are referred to in the church as what? These are referred to in the church as lunar feasts, because those particular feast days are judged by the lunar calendar and not the solar calendar that we use today. However, there is currently a move on in the church, and it is currently under consideration, to establish a set date every year for Easter. Which means, don't get ahead of me, if the church does decide to establish a date for Easter, it means that we will have an established date for Mardi Gras every year.
1, 2, 3.
Well, in all fairness, it takes the church about 20 years to make up its mind, so you're fine. You're fine. All right? What other questions?
Oh, when was the first Mardi Gras?
Well,
First
that
Mardi Gras
depends.
where, dear?
You mean the first Mardi Gras ever recorded, or the first Mardi Gras in North America, or the first Mardi Gras to be celebrated in the Deep South? Which one? The first recorded incidence of a Mardi Gras celebration was recorded in Nice, France, in the year 1294.
Nice.
Yes. However, the first Mardi Gras celebrated in North America was celebrated on March the 3rd, 1699, when Sieur d'Iberville and his men landed at a point they named Point du Mardi Gras, about 20 miles nearby modern-day Dauphin Island in Alabama. Because it was Mardi Gras back home in France on March the 3rd, Iberville and his men celebrated the holiday right there at that point. Now, unfortunately, we can no longer visit the Genesis point of Carnival because it's under about 7 feet of water.
Amen.
So unless someone's willing to start a crew of snorkel, we're not going. All right, Reveliers, let's keep going. You're doing well.
So why is there a baby in the king cake?
The
That's an
baby!
excellent question. The king cake baby. One of the most recognizable symbols of Carnival and Mardi Gras in New Orleans. However, before we discuss the baby, we should really discuss the origin of the king cake in New Orleans. The king cake babies. Where did they come from? We have an organization called the 12th Night Rebels to thank for the king cake and also to thank for the tradition of handing out trinkets during parades. In 1870, the 12th Night Rebels, the second ever crew in New Orleans, began celebrating. Now, you must keep in mind, at that time, women were not allowed to participate in Mardi Gras celebrations.
Countdown for that one.
Yes, pretty, yes.
Well done.
They were right there on top of it. You read the script. The ladies were seated in a gallery as the men in costumes cavorted about and did, what boys do. The women in their finery, the most gorgeous gowns, sitting and watching their husbands make complete and utter fools of themselves. When the time came, the 12th Night Revelers used their own king cake, the French king cake, the galette de roi, and they had the brilliant idea of hiding a gold-painted bead inside one of the pieces. The pieces would be passed out to the ladies in the gallery, and the lucky young lady who got the piece with the golden bead would be proclaimed the Queen of Carnival. When the time came around for the pieces of the galette de roi to be passed out, the men were passing out little plates, left and right, taking spears, stabbing the galette de roi, and handing them over the crowd to the ladies in the back. Now, does anyone know who got the very first gold bead?
The Queen.
No?
No.
No?
No.
And do you know why you don't know? No one else does either. That's a fact. Because apparently, the young lady who would have been queen ate the baby. It was at that point that the learned gentlemen of the 12th Night Revelers suddenly said to themselves, maybe we should keep track of where we send this. The following year they did just that. And Emma Beard was the very first Queen of Carnival with the 12th Night Revelers. The following year, the gentlemen of the crew also included 6 silver beads. The lady who got the gold bead was proclaimed the queen, and the ladies who received the silver beads were made her royal court. Now, yes, it was.
Remember, this was before cable.
Very true. Up until about 1938, you could find just about anything inside of a king cake. You could find trinkets. Here you see a selection of porcelain trinkets that were all included in various king cakes from the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. You could find a ring, a coin, a gold-painted bead, or depending upon your family, just a red bead tossed in. That continued all the way up until 1938, when a baker named Donald Entringer, that's Mr. Entringer there on the left, was working for the most famous bakery in New Orleans at the time, Mackenzie's. Don't be Miss Mackenzie's. I want buttermilk drops right now. Anyway, should have brought it up. That particular Mardi Gras, Mr. Entringer was making his king cakes, and it suddenly occurred to him that he had run out of trinkets to put into.
1, 2, 3. Ooh.
However, according to Mr. Entringer, who gave a newspaper interview shortly before his passing in 1989, he encountered a traveling salesman who dealt in novelties. One of the novelties that he carried were porcelain baby dolls for doll houses. Mr. Entringer picked up those dolls immediately from the salesman, started putting them into his king cakes, and the king cake baby baby became a phenomenon. Now, a caveat. In other parts of the world, the king cake baby does indeed represent the baby Jesus because their 12th night or King's Day celebrations mark the day when the three magi arrived at the creche of the baby Jesus. However, in New Orleans, this is absolutely not the case. I don't care what Kathy Lee Gifford tells you every year on the station. In New Orleans, it has more to do with commerce than Christianity. And that is where the king cake baby comes from. All right, excellent question, Reveille Solomon. Now, what else would you like to know?
Why Mardi Gras? What's Lundi Gras? What's a gras?
Poor thing, you're shocked, aren't you?
Are you okay? Do we need to get a defibrillator or something? You all right? We made it.
I'll be fine.
I'm okay.
Class, please inform Reveille Baldwin. What does Mardi Gras translate to?
Fat Tuesday.
Fat Tuesday. I don't know anything about that. And it translates to Fat Tuesday because, as we said before, Mardi Gras is the final day of the Carnival celebration. Everything had to be eaten up on that final day because Lent was right around the corner. But you also asked about Lundi Gras. Lundi Gras has become a very popular part of the holiday season since the late 1980s. But the Lundi Gras that we know today actually had its origins at the beginning of the 20th century. It wasn't called Lundi Gras then, but the tradition of wrecks arriving at the foot of the river to be greeted by the mayor in a large celebration, handed the key to the city, and handed control of the city honorarily during Mardi Gras started at the beginning of the 20th century. By World War I, that tradition had fallen off. Then, in the late 1980s, the School of Design, the Rex organization, decided that they were going to resurrect the tradition. Now, today, Lundi Gras is an enormous celebration with Zulu, absolutely correct! The Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club is now a major part of the Lundi Gras celebrations, not only on the river at Waldenburg Park, but also out in the Rivertown section in Kenner, meeting with the crew of Argus every year. And today, thanks to the crew of Endymion Parade, we also have Samedi Gras, Fat Saturday. And it is.
And what's on Fat Saturday?
An enormous celebration held in Mid-City, Endymion being the only parade that still rolls on the Mid-City route to this day. It begins early in the morning. Enormous crowds gathered for the Samedi Gras celebration. There are bands, there are certain marching groups, and one group I like in particular, the Super Crew, who go around passing out soup.
The crew of Chad.
Oh, the crew of Chad. How many of you are familiar with the crew of Chad?
Yeah.
One in the back, not Chad. The crew of Chad is a facetious name that is given to those individuals who still to this day insist upon going out in the neutral grounds on Canal Street and blocking off with paint
That's
every place they want to be, thinking that when they come back, those spaces are going to be available. They never are. But that is what happens with all of the different gras that we now celebrate.
So tell me about the music. Is there like special kinds of music?
Oh, absolutely. Should we?
I think we should.
Yes, I think we should. All right, Reveliers. Now, of course, the first song that everyone thinks of when they think about Mardi Gras and Carnival is the anthem of Carnival, which is...
Aika.
No.
Ain't no
If
place
ever I
to be
cease
on
to
Mardi Gras
love.
Day.
That's just you. And I've had that checked. No, of course, we're talking about the anthem of Carnival, If Ever I Cease to Love.
There's no place to be on
But
Mardi Gras Day.
there are a number of other Mardi Gras songs, and Professor Spangenberg, we have some lights in the house for you, sir. Thank you very much. Oh, there you are. We can't see you. Today we're going to play a game with all of you that we're calling Name That Carnival 2. And I'm looking for volunteers. Don't make me come get you, I will.
Who would like to be the first volunteer to help the professor with the first song?
Oh, very well.
Oh, you're going to make it tough for us, huh? You're returning kind.
You, madam, stand up for us, please. And what's your name again? Oh, yes, Reveille Gabrielle, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Reveille Gabrielle, we're going to play a short clip of a carnival song. Either give us the name or the name of the artist, and the Grand Marshal has a special prize for you. Are you prepared?
No.
I am.
Professor Spangenberg, our first clue, please. Don't say it.
My grandma and your grandma were sitting by the fire. My grandma was
Don't say it.
there.
Dance.
All right, Reverend Gabrielle, can you name that carnival too? Iko, is that right?
There you are.
Yes, you now have your own king cake, baby, and you don't have to buy one.
True that.
All right, we're looking for another volunteer. With you, my dear. Stand up. I love your scarf. It's all king cake. So is this, really. It's
What a lovely ensemble.
I ate it. And what's your name? Reveille Jennifer. Now, Jennifer, we're going to do the same thing with you. Professor Spangenberg is going to play a clue, and you need to tell us either the name of the song or the artist. Are you prepared?
Yeah, sure.
Very good. Professor Spangenberg, our second clue, please. Now, Reveille Jennifer, can you name that carnival tune?
Went on down to the Audubon Zoo and they all asked for you.
I'll take it. Thank you so much, Reveille Jennifer. Have a seat. Now, our final clue is a difficult one.
Yes.
Now, I saw a hand go up in the back.
Incoming.
Oh, there she is. Do stand for us, my dear. And what is your name?
Reveille Celine.
Reveille.
Now, Reveille Celine, we're going to play our final clue for you. And again, as I said, it's a tough one. But I have faith in you to be able to guess it.
Don't say it, but you can dance.
Reveille Spangenberg, if you would please, our third and final clue. Now, Reveille Celine, can you name that carnival tune?
Is it down in New Orleans?
That's absolutely correct!
Here, you need one more bidet in your life.
Congratulations! She's the very first one to actually get that clue. That deserves more applause. And thank all of you for playing Name That Carnival. Well done, Reveille. Thank you, Professor Spangenberg. So yes, there are indeed special songs for the carnival season, and a lot of them. We've only touched on 4 today, but there are hundreds more.
Any other questions?
So, who or what were the first crews?
Huh. Now that's actually a very good question, Reveille Salman.
It's a multi-level.
When we think of the crews here in New Orleans, we automatically go to the first crew of modern carnival, the Mystic Crew of Comus. However, crews, like we know them today, actually began appearing in the early 1700s in Mobile, Alabama.
1, 2, 3. But it's okay.
In all fairness, I tell people they did it first, but we did it this.
1, 2, 3, yeah!
Now, what we recognize as an actual parading crew, though they were not called that at the time, was first appeared in 1704, and it was the Society of Mobile. Then, in 1711, we had the first instance of a parading crew with the Society Boeuf Gras.
Boof.
Like
Like roast boof.
And that's why there's no crew of vegans. Carrying a grudge, are we? The Society of Boeuf Gras began marching, as we said, in the early 1700s. their entire parade was an enormous severed bull's head.
Ew.
Days before Peter. On a wagon, pushed through the center of town by 16 men.
That's nasty.
Yes. But it must not have been too nasty because the crew continued to march all the way up until 1861.
It's Mobile, Alabama.
So yes, there have been crews before the modern advent of Carnival, but those crews were not the type of crews that we recognize today. Today we recognize either parading crews, marching crews, or ball mask crews.
Ball mask.
Ball mask.
Ball mask.
A ball mask. It's when people arrive in costume and masks. You know, ball mask.
Okay.
I think this might be an excellent time to discuss the carnival balls, Grand Marshal.
I agree with you.
Very well. How many of you here have been to a carnival ball, just this year alone? Anyone?
Oh, we're talking about a true carnival ball mask, not a carnival tailgate.
The carnival balls that we know today were actually created by the French governor of Louisiana, the Marquis de Vaudreuil. Let's all say that because it's fun.
1, 2, 3.
The Marquis de Vaudreuil. Don't forget to show me. The Marquis de Vaudreuil was a very expansive governor. He enjoyed the finest of each and everything that he could possibly get his hands on. At his carnival balls, he would bring in the finest food from all across the world. Can we close the curtains?
We most certainly can.
He would bring in musicians who would play throughout the governor's mansion for the entirety of the ball. And the balls lasted for hours and hours and hours on end. Again, before cable television. If you were going to the Vaudreuil ball, you were expected to arrive in the finest costumes and raiments you could possibly arrive in. Ladies would wear lorgnette masks, and indeed the gentlemen actually carried lorgnette masks with them as well. As the evening progressed, plate after plate of the finest foods that could possibly be achieved were served to the guests, an absolute embarrassment of riches in keeping with the carnival tradition. And as the musicians continued to play, the guests would eventually be brought into a large room. A room that featured a stage, much like this one. As the crowd was assembled, everyone would fall silent, and the highlight of the evening would begin. The lights would be dim, the candles would be blown out by the servants. And as they watched, the curtains would open to reveal a tableau vivant. Tableau vivant literally means living picture. Our tableau vivant today represents the animals of the world. This would go on for 10 minutes. It was to allow the guests to have all the time necessary and to kill a few minutes, because quite frankly, they were full. To enjoy the picture. The tableaux vivants were the main entertainment for the evening. They could be representative of themes such as animals of the world, famous military battles, famous works of art. Even Shakespearean plays were often the subject for tableaux vivants. And then, after everyone had had their fill, the curtains would close, and another tableau vivant would be completed. Now this would go on into the wee hours of the morning, sometimes into daybreak the following day. 10 to 20 tableaux vivants could be presented in a single ball. And when they were done, All of the attendees were given small favors to take away with them to remind them of the evening. It's a tradition that the Carnival crew still use today, passing out favors in order to remember the occasion. Thanks to the quadrille, we now have carnival balls, and many of our carnival balls still use tableau vivants to this very day. Most of the crews still have their annual carnival balls, but as the Grand Marshal said, they resemble a tailgater more than they resemble a tableau. But that's part of the marvelous majesty of Carnival. It is continuously adapting and changing with the times, even as it embraces its past. And that's a marvelous thing. Now, does that explain about the Carnival ball masks?
Yes, very much so.
I would expect
So
so.
my next question is, was it always men that was in charge, or did like women have like this awesome cool role that they played?
Rebel and Baldwin, I'm about to blow your mind. Can anyone here tell me the name of the very first all-female Carnival crew?
Iris.
Iris is currently the only surviving. No heavens, no, not Nix.
It helps to know what you're talking about when you come to the King's College of Carnival Knowledge.
No,
Venus.
No.
no, but we'll talk about Venus in just a moment. They hold an important part in our carnival heritage. The very first all-female crew began in 1896, and it was called Les Mystérieuses. Les Mystérieuses was what we refer to now as a leap year crew. They had their balls every 4 years, and they only had 2 of them, once in 1856 and one in 1900. But because of what the women achieved during that time, they are still remembered today, and their influence still carries through with the other female crews currently running. And the queen of the very first Les Mystérieuses was a young society matron named Artemis Baldwin.
That's money!
Oh, she's caught up.
It took you a good long time to get that in there, huh?
Very true. Now, I heard you mention the crew of Venus. Crew of Venus was the very first all-female parading crew, and they began marching in 1941. Unfortunately, they were not well received either by the weather or by the gentlemen on the streets. It was quite a scandal to have women riding in a Mardi Gras parade.
1, 2, 3.
Scandal.
The weather that day was dreadful. Sheets of pelting rain, assaulting the women on the floats as they made their first processional, with the men on the street, catcalling, making nasty comments about them. Truly nasty comments, even for 1941. And the ladies of the crew of Venus had this to say about the entire affair. So what? Come in! They continued to roll all the way up until 1992. Now, as we said earlier, the crew of Iris is the oldest surviving all-female crew, but Iris did not begin parading until 1951. There were even all-black women's crews that appeared in the early 1920s. 2 of these, the Red Circle and the Young Ladies 23, established women's places in the Black Carnival experience. Unfortunately, these crews are no longer with us, but again, their influence continues to this very day. And the oldest of all of the black crews is the original Illinois Club. They were founded in 1895 by members of the Illinois Railroad. They celebrate their 125th anniversary this year.
1, 2, 3, yeah!
And to this very day, as they did at their very first cotillion, they danced to the strains of Dance, Dance, Queen of Illinois, and performed the Chicago Slide. That was funny. Slides are funny, I had no idea. But no, it has not always been men. The women were late being able to get into the party, but once the ladies arrived, things began to change, and now we are surrounded by the glorious ladies of Carnival, the Nixons, the Muses, the Iris, the new crew of Nefertiti that just marched over. Paraded nearly 30 years in the East, a marvelous event.
Wow.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So,
Oh.
like,
So, I have one.
Yes, what would it be?
So when did parades start in North America? Or New Orleans, Mobile? Did they-
Well, as we said earlier, parades began marching in Mobile in the early 1700s. Here in New Orleans, before the arrival of Columbus, there are at least two noted parades that happened. Not parades like we're used to today, but they have a close enough resemblance to our modern carnival to be included. The first parade that was recorded was a group of college kids. They're always college kids, if you notice. Always college kids. Masking had just been made legal by the American government. So in 1821, we have the first recorded instance of a masked parade making its way through the streets of New Orleans. The second recorded instance came about 12 years later, when the laws continued to loosen and public celebrations were allowed to occur. That's the first instance of a carnival parade with an actual float. Of course, they didn't call them floats then. They were called tableau cars. But that's how fancy it was. I just bought a new 1987 tableau car. Gets great mileage, 4 horses to the mile. Thank you. But it was the arrival of the mystic crew of Columbus on February 24th, 1857, that introduced the modern carnival we know today. And the main reason for Columbus to be the genesis point for modern carnival is very simple. They actually showed up again the next year. And then the year after that. The previous two parades, they marched once, we're done, we're gone. But Columbus continued on, and this is a lesson for all of us. Perseverance pays off. Does that answer your question, Reverend Solomon?
Yes, and I have another one.
What?
So, all these parades and so forth, I noticed they throw beads. Is there any reason why they throw beads?
Well, beads are a very easy throw, but that tradition, as we said, goes back to the 12th Night Revelers in 1870. They were the first ones to throw trinkets during their processions. Beads have become sort of the official currency in recent years. But those beads, in fact, you know what? We'll discuss this again in just a moment because there's so much more I want to tell you about this.
Make note.
Make notes?
well, I have a question.
Yes.
What's the deal with Zulu?
What's the deal with Zulu? Let's find out, shall we? This is my favorite part. I love talking about Zulu. The Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club. In 1909, there were organizations throughout the community called Benevolent Aid Societies. Benevolent Aid Societies were set up to collect money for the members of the community, to assist with things like medical bills, financial need, and very often to pay for burial costs for members of the community that had passed on. One of these Benevolent Aid Societies was a group called the Tramps. And the Tramps celebrated with their community every Mardi Gras. 1909, the members of the Tramps went to the Pythian Temple, which is in 234 Loyola. The entire building was recently renovated and it's gorgeous. Inside that building was housed the Colored Knights of Pythias, which was an international fraternal organization. And at the Pythian Temple, there was also a theater on the top floor. One of the groups who performed there was the Smart Set, an African-American traveling vaudeville troupe. Now, you must remember in 1909, the entire world had become fascinated by the story of Shaka Zulu and the Zulu tribe. The Smart Set, realizing this, took the opportunity to theme their act to the Zulu nation. And they performed an act called There Never Was and Never Will Be a King Like Me. After that performance, the members of the Tramps left the Pythian Theater to walk a few blocks down to a saloon. And it's always a saloon. It's always a saloon.
You'd think by now there'd be a crew of brewski or something.
Don't say it too loudly, it'll happen next year. They met up with members of other benevolent aid societies and walked into the back room of that saloon. And when they emerged, the crew of Zulu was formed. In 1916, they incorporated to become Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club. They continued to march all the way up until 1948 in somewhat anonymous circumstances. You see, you must remember that the crew of Zulu was originally formed to make fun of Rex. Whereas Rex appeared in long gowns dotted with fake jewels, the Zulu king appeared in a simple brass suit. Whereas Rex had a fine bejeweled scepter, the Zulu king carried a banana stalk. And whereas Rex had a fine crown upon his golden painted head, the king of Zulu wore a lard crown, a fashion out of a lard can, for his royal raiment. They used to come up the canals that existed in the city all the way up until the 1950s and 60s. How many of you are familiar with the Union Terminal downtown? Where the buses come in, where you catch the mega bus? That did it. That neutral ground directly in front of Union Terminal used to be a canal, and that was the canal where Zulu would come up to get into the city. Now that you know that, you'll never forget it.
1, 2, 3. Ooh!
Then, in 1948, the world became aware of Zulu when their most famous king, Louis Armstrong, took to the parade route. Louis was already an international superstar, but achieving his lifelong dream of being the king of Zulu, he was featured in newspaper articles around the world and even made the cover of Time magazine in his Zulu crown. Now, of course, we all adore the Zulus. Oh, I love that face. I love that face. It's like he's saying, what are you looking at? But of course, when Zulu is mentioned, everyone thinks of the coconuts. The coconuts have become a treasured part of our Carnival heritage and remain one of the most desired throws in all of Mardi Gras. We also have the Zulu coconut to thank for the recent uptick of personalized throws amongst all of the crews. Iris now has their sunglasses. King Arthur now has their grapes. Oh, I see we have some King Arthurs out there. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. And that is the deal with Zulu.
Okay. So what else is throws? Like, what else do they throw out there?
Oh, well, they have a number of those. Grand Marshal, would you be so kind?
Oh, I was hoping you would ask. Now, we all know the common throws of the plumes and the beads and stuff, but it used to be a time when the rare Czechoslovakian glass beads and then the glass beads from China that resembled the glass-blown Christmas ornaments we all know. These would be handed to people and just given to you one at a time. You didn't go home with bags of stuff. If you had one of these, that was enough treasure. But there was a time prior to these that they would handle something out to somebody at the edge of the parade on the float, and as they got to the person, got ready to take the beads, they'd hit them with water and flour.
It's like an experience I had one time.
Or lye, or even a brick. You never had to worry about what was going on or what was being handed. I'm sorry, you were interrupting. What were you going to say?
I'm sorry, it's just that reminded me of my actual first carnival experience.
Well, please do share it with all of us.
Well, when I visited Iquitos, Peru, I just happened to be during the carnival time they had down there.
Yes.
And what they would do is they would throw like water balloons or bags of flour at each other's faces. It was kind of like a great big April Fool's Day, except everyone told the same joke.
Exactly. And that's how Carnival here began, with their throws and stuff, teasing people up and giving them things. Now, we also have nowadays, luckily, we have things like crew plushes that are always treasured to have, as well as these new beads by Bayou Bros, and they are recycled beads and medallions. And we're moving forward into a green time, where beginning next year, we have recyclable beads. And the professor's going to say something about that in just a moment, because I'm just too excited. I've got to share it with Rose. We now have things like these light-up throws that shine in the night, just like as if you're at Disney watching Spectral Magic. More plush throws. What else is there? Now, there are such a thing as favors, crew favors, that the crews have. Now, these are given out at the Carnival Bal Masque. This is from the crew of Allah, a representation of Allah's Arabian Nights theme. Going back over to here, oh no, wait. Oh no, oh, but wait. How many of you were here when we had Carnival money? Oh, yes. They threw these off in little rolled plastic sheets, and you unroll them, and it was the crew on the front and the theme on the back. But even better than these, there was a time when they even threw postage stamps off the floats for each crew, and some of them each crew's float. And this postage stamps you could actually use to mail a letter.
It's very similar to what they're doing now in Jefferson Parish this season with the Mardi Moolah. They're now throwing out wooden doubloons, and if you take these doubloons into the merchants in Jefferson Parish, you get a certain percentage off of your purchase.
Oh, cool.
Now, the professor pointed out something earlier, and I need to say, these are some chalices from the crew of King Arthur, and there's so much more to show. These are handmade, hand-baked, printed medallions from the Society of the Champs-Élysées. A lot of crews are beginning to do these. These are treasured items. They're not made anywhere else but here by the loving members of the crews. And speaking of the loving members of the crews, we've spoken about the Zulu coconuts, the crew of muses. They have their decorative shoes. Now, these were gifted to us by a dear friend, Nori Pritchard, who co-owns Nola Craft Culture. And nothing is better than being smiled upon by a muse and being loved by them by having a shoe decorated, given to you, which represents particularly something that involves you and your heart. How many of you here remember Punch Train Beach?
Yes.
How many of you here remember Merlin Rainbow, the body puppet magician who was the character?
It's just one, but she remembers. Go.
Oh, she wasn't born then. I already know who it was. But this was something that I was Merlin Rainbow. This is the first Mr. Bingle shoe ever created from muses. And now everybody else is making them, but this was the first. Thank you, Nori. And such is the one for Professor.
This shoe was given to me by Reverend Nori Pritchard to celebrate my 20th anniversary here at King's College of Carnival Knowledge. And I'd like to point out, inside the shoe, she has actually painted my entire face with glitter.
So we have lots of innovations happening, particularly the green of Carnival. We're now moving towards green, sustainable, and reusable, recyclable, which is great. But there's also more unique items being thrown, particularly this year. And we're proud to present the crew of those lunchboxes. You could, if you didn't keep eating it after you hide your notes in it. But anyway, it is a lunchbox, and how cool is that you can be able to cook little tchotchkes in? And isn't that a great new item? Now, I told the captain of the crew, it's like, this is great. There's no thermos, so next year you really need a thermos, and it needs to be shaped like a canoptic jar.
Oh, I got it.
Thank you for knowing what a canoptic jar is.
And this year it was announced that by next Mardi Gras, we should actually have our first round of biodegradable babies. Try not to remember that they're made of algae. But they will biodegrade. And most importantly, they won't be clogging up the catch basins.
And they won't be laying down processing ones from the attics.
Oh, yes. For a long time, it's been an inside joke with New Orleans. The reason the city is sinking is because of all the beans.
That stuff's heavy.
It is. What else can we tell you, Revelers?
Have there been any movies affiliated with Carnival?
Oh, there
Movies.
most certainly have. Please,
Of course.
Red
Oh,
Marshal.
most certainly. Now, we all know that there's an awful lot of movies and television series and commercials and print ads and stuff that deal with the color and majesty and mysticism of Carnival and Mardi Gras. Now, we're going to talk about one in just a minute that started a craze that we're not too happy with. That's on your shoulders. However, we all have seen films like going back to Dixiana, all the way through Mardi Gras with Pat Boone, and then Murder at the Mardi Gras, made for television, starring Dee Dee Khan and Barbie Benton. All right, they know who Barbie Benton was. But we still have TV series and episodes of cast members going to the Carnival and Mardi Gras and stuff. However, Disney has given us Princess Tiana. Princess Tiana from The Princess and the Frog, who was a representation of beloved Leah Chase. She was the basis for the story of Tiana, with her love of cooking in New Orleans. Yes, I hope some of y'all knew that. But Not only is she a princess, she's also Disney's first what?
Princess.
We'll go with that, but that's not the answer.
You're right,
Yeah, Creole.
I just covered that.
but it's not the question before me.
I just covered that
Creole
too.
princess.
She's a princess. She's an African American princess. What else does she represent?
Creole.
Creole. Okay, there we go. Who was that?
Work with me, please.
Who said Louisiana? Stand up, please. Just stand up. That's all. Turn around and wave there. That's what we're looking for. She is Disney's first Louisiana New Orleanian princess as well. So once again, she is a multi-layered character, just like the story and the characters from The Princess and the Frog. And that's not the first time that we did an animated feature based on Mardi Gras. We also premiered here in 1996, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which begins with Topsy-Turvy Day, which is what? 12th.
And is a representation of the Carnival in Nice, France in 1294.
So, aside from that, can you think of any other animated features that may have involved Mardi Gras?
All dogs go to heaven.
That's correct there, Revelier. Don Bluth's All Dogs Go to Heaven did take place here in New Orleans, and it involved Mardi Gras and Carnival. However, on a sad note, it opened the same day we opened Little Mermaid.
Never had a chance.
1, 2, 3. So yes, to answer your question, an awful lot of movies, live action and animated, do indeed enjoy the majesty and color of Mardi Gras.
Now, the Grand Marshal has put me into the unfortunate position of having to talk about that film. Before this film arrived in the 1960s, Mardi Gras was a much more proper celebration, much more refined in many, many ways. Except on Bourbon Street. It's always Bourbon Street. Always Bourbon Street. The film to which I am referring is Easy Rider.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Easy Rider, in combination with two other events that we'll discuss shortly, is one of the reasons that we now have the phenomenon of for babies.
Phenomenon. Phenomenon.
With so many people coming down to New Orleans and with the political and social climate of the time, they were coming to New Orleans to try and replicate the scenes that they had seen in the film. Before that point, that really didn't happen all that often, and when it did happen, it was a rarity. However, after the release of Easy Rider, it became much, much, much more common.
Now we have the Spring Breakers coming. Thank goodness.
That's
And
a different movie.
the other reason that that particular thing happened was the arrival of the crew of Bacchus. And I'll explain why. Bacchus became the very first crew in New Orleans history to open their membership up to anyone that wanted to join. Up until that point, crews had been mostly secret societies. If you wanted to join a particular crew, you had to be approved by the members of that crew, and they used the old system of blackballing. Small white bottles placed by the members into a hopper. A single black ball in the hopper meant that that particular candidate could never join the crew ever for the rest of their lives. Yes, it's a little vicious, but that particular secret society mentality directly contributed to the expansion and growth of Mardi Gras in New Orleans. You see a member who wants to be in your crew. The crew votes. 1 black ball. You're out for life. Fine. I'll just go start my own crew. And that's how the crew system began to be expanded here in New Orleans. By the late 1950s, early 60s, though, that system had started to break down a bit. And we started to see crews becoming smaller, the membership was becoming smaller, and we also saw more people coming into the city who were very concerned with the fact that when they came to visit, they couldn't just go to a Mardi Gras ball. They couldn't ride in a parade crew. Owen Pitt Brennan and the Brennan family created the crew of Bacchus. The Bacchus membership was open to the entire world, and Carnival changed forever. It was also about this time spring break became a thing. Again, it's always college kids. It's always college kids. And that is how we got the phenomenon of forbids. However, Bacchus also provided us with another innovation for Carnival, the first celebrity grand marshal. Get extra credit. Can anyone tell me the first celebrity grand marshal?
Danny Kaye.
Ah, very good. Very good.
Who was it?
Who? It was Danny Kaye. How many of us are old enough to remember Dan? None of you are young. Okay, that's okay.
I know many of them. He was the first.
Any other questions?
All right, your time is
Where
wasted.
else has Mardi Gras been? Like,
That's actually a very interesting question. Mardi Gras has actually been attempted in virtually every major American city. Believe it or not, at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, suddenly all cities around the country began to try and have their own Mardi Gras celebrations. There was Mardi Gras for 2 years in Louisville, Kentucky, from 1898 to 1900.
I see why that failed.
It was attempted in Seattle, Washington, who has now started having Mardi Gras again, and tried in the 90s and failed. Today, we have Mardi Gras in places all over the country, such as Mount Shasta, California, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and most notably, the second largest Mardi Gras celebrations in the United States happen in the Soulard area in St. Louis, Missouri. Second largest. Been doing it for nearly 50 years. Now, it's a much more contained celebration than we know here in New Orleans, but very successful, and they are currently in the process of building their own carnival heritage. Even here in Louisiana, we have a completely different and unique carnival that people are now beginning to pay attention to.
What's that?
It's called the Courrier du Mardi Gras. How many of you have been to Korea? There you are! Aye! Cajun mating call. The Courrier du Mardi Gras in the Acadian parishes. As you can see from this image here, the costumes are very, very different from the costumes that we have here in the rest of the Gulf South. Their costumes are made out of rags that are carefully pieced together throughout the year. Their costumes, the masks, are actual screens that they have painted. Window screens. Screen door screens. The pointed hats, the entire costume design comes directly from their French heritage. In the early days of the Courrier du Mardi Gras, there you are, they've been standing there for 6.5 hours. The original Courrier du Mardi Gras went with the couriers themselves, getting up early on Mardi Gras morning and going to every house in the area and picking up all of the ingredients necessary to make an enormous pot of gum. Once the ingredients were fetched, everything was tossed into the pot in the center of town, and the party began and continued on into the wee hours of the morning. Today, the gumbo is made well in advance, and so they chase chickens. This is actually more for the children than for the adults, though some of the adults do still get into it. And the child who catches the chicken after it has been chased all over the yard and really just worn out gets to choose what part of the chicken they get to have with their dinner later that evening. I'd like a breast. I'd like a thigh. I want the feet. What's the matter with you? Nowadays, the Courrier du Mardi Gras still holds on to their traditions, but it's more of a big party than anything else, an excuse for everyone in the town to come around, gather amongst themselves, and have a truly communal celebration. And now, because the Courrier du Mardi Gras is becoming more well known, tourists are now arriving from around the world to take part in the Courrier celebrations in the Acadian parishes. And that is the story of the Courrier du Mardi Gras.
Any other questions?
I remember there was a word in the notes today, something about like
Just the one?
for now.
Okay.
Saturnalia.
Saturnalia.
That was it, yeah.
Saturnalia. Saturnalia is a pagan celebration that directly informs many of the traditions that we have in Carnival today. It must be remembered, and our alumni will confirm this, that our modern carnival is actually a collection of different traditions, different styles, and different actions that have all come together to make the carnival that we know today. In fact, let me give you a demonstration of one. Reverend Solomon, come and stand right here, please.
Okay.
Por favor, s'il vous plaît.
During Saturnalia, the social roles were flipped. Masters became slaves, and slaves became the masters. And the lowest caste, one of them, was to be made the Lord of Misrule.
Sure.
For the entirety of Saturnalia, usually between a week and 10 days, depending upon how the Saturnalia was running that year. The Lord of Misrule was treated as the highest ruler in the land. Walked through the streets in the finest clothing, given the finest foods, surrounded by courtiers, barking orders at people left and right, and people actually did what the Lord of Misrule said to do. This continued on throughout Saturnalia until the celebrations came to an end, and so did the Lord of Misrule. Wait, what? At the end of Saturnalia, the Lord of Misrule was sacrificed to the gods. Nope. It's very true. While most of the rest of Rome woke up the day after Saturnalia had ended and went back to their lives, the Lord of Misrule woke up dead. This is a tradition we still observe today on Ash Wednesday morning.
Well, that was true. Come on.
But the tradition of the Lord of Misrule was echoed by the 12th night revelers, and the royalty that we now know in carnival parades and carnival ball masks today comes directly from the Saturnalia tradition. Now, do you understand?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right. Now, let's keep moving. We have very little time left, and these people are getting hungry.
Oh, okay. What's the deal with the royalty then?
How do you mean?
Well, has there been actual royalty that's come to town?
Well, actually, there have been on two notable occasions. Two?
Oh, do tell us about it, Professor.
I think I will, Grand Marshal. The first time that actual royalty came to New Orleans was in 1872. I said the wrong date. And that was the first parade of the School of Design, commonly known as the Rex Organization. In fact, the School of Design and the Rex Parade was put together specifically to honor the traveling Grand Duke Alexis Alexandrovich Romanov, the brother of the Tsar in Russia. He was touring the United States in 1872, and he came to New Orleans, saw the parade, and it is because of the Grand Duke that we have the colors of purple, gold, and green as our carnival colors. The Grand Duke used his experience in heraldry to put those colors together and make them part of the celebrations. That's a well-known fact. A lesser-known fact is also one of the most scandalous events in carnival history. Professor Spangenberg, may we have some lights, please? Now, I'm going to need some volunteers for this. Oh, I saw a hand. Come right up here, my dear. Come stand up. What is your name? Say again? Lily! Revelier Lily! Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Revelier Lily! I'd like you to stand right there, and I would like you to hold that scepter. And now we're going to need a gentleman to stand with our Revelier Lily. There's not a young man anywhere.
There's a young man.
Where's that? That's a young man. Come stand right on up here. What is your name, Revelier?
Kyle.
Revelier Kyle. Come stand right up here. Revelier Kyle. Now, Kyle, you can stand on the other side of Revelier Lily. In 1950, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor came to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. Now, some of you historians out there may remember that the Duke of Windsor had previously been King Edward VIII of Great Britain. He renounced his crown in 1936 to marry the sophisticated socialite and divorcee Wallis Simpson. It was quite a scandal. But in 1950, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor came to New Orleans, and they were presented at court, at the meeting of the courts, to Rex and Coates. Yes, and you know where this is going. Now, carnival royalty is never to bow to anyone at all. It's one of the unspoken rules of Carnival. However, here we had legitimate royalty. And as we all know, legitimate royalty doesn't bow to anyone unless they're of a higher rank than they. That night, at the municipal auditorium, 2,500 people fell silent as the Duke and Duchess of Windsor were presented to Rex and Coates. What would happen? Surely Rex and Coates would never bow. I mean, Rex might be a king, Coates is a god. But surely the Duke and Duchess would not bow. And everyone watched in rapt silence as the Duke and Duchess stepped forward. The Duchess of Windsor, according to historians of the time, executed two of the most perfect curtsies that had ever been seen in court, and the Duke bowed so lowly that his head nearly touched the ground. You got much farther than I would have. And the entire municipal auditorium exploded! New Orleanians throwing their programs up into the air, cheers and rapt applause. Old ladies that hadn't moved out of their chair in the entire evening were jumping up going, whee! It was amazing. And all of New Orleans was fascinated and charmed and loved it, except for the British. The British, of course, were not amused. So unamused were they that the scandal forced the BBC, no less, to call for the Duke to renounce his title, to put himself into lifelong seclusion, and most notably, to divorce Wallace Simpson. Now, in all fairness, they'd never been happy since 1936, so that's really what they wanted, was the divorce. Everything else they couldn't have let go. However, the Duke and Duchess continued to be married, and they continued to tour the world, returning both to New Orleans and to other places in the United States throughout their lifetimes. Let's hear it for our Now, with that in mind, I've been given a note. One of our professors has put together a very special presentation for all of us this evening to celebrate the season. And to tell you more about that, I would like to welcome the chair of the costuming department at King's College of Carnival Knowledge, Professor Lucia Liuzza.
I am Professor Lucia Liuzza, the head of the costuming department here at the King's College of Carnival Knowledge. And I am proud to present the work from this semester's costuming class for you all. As always, our classes focus on the various forms of costuming for the many facets of Carnival and Mardi Gras. Let's begin with our students' creations for Twelfth Night, the Herald of Carnival. Our head of technical operations is dressed in the colors of the season, accented with tiger stripes. Not only a reference to our state's capital and the stripes of Louisiana State University, the stripes represent how Carnival itself leaps upon the residents of the Gulf South and hangs around until the season is completed. Let's hear from Professor Sandy. Our next entry is a representation of Twelfth Night, and this one is based upon the three wise men's arrival at the manger of the baby Jesus. Reveille Solomon represents all of the three kingdoms of the legends. The headpiece and the gown are decked out in the traditional royal color of purple, accented. The headpiece and the gown are decked out in the traditional royal color of purple, accented with green highlights to represent our New Orleans tradition. The color scheme is chosen correctly to represent the celebrations in Mobile, Alabama, which do not include the color green in their celebrations. A round of applause for Beverly O'Sullivan. The next entry is based upon the Bible of Carnival, The Mystic Crew by historian Harry Young. The first words in Mr. Young's book read, "Carnival is a butterfly of winter, whose last mad flight of Mardi Gras ends his glory." With that in mind, we present the butterfly of winter. Wearing a formal gown of dotted glitter green, accented with purple and gold ruffles, and a cape of dotted sheer with tips to accentuate to look like the wings of a butterfly. And she's topped off with a headpiece with butterfly antennae. Please show your appreciation. And finally, we present our own Grand Marshal Mardi Gras in a stunning costume created by our seniors for today's class. Carnival is the season, but Mardi Gras is the last glorious blast of that season. With that in mind, please welcome Grand Marshal Mardi Gras as Mardi Gras Morning. The Grand Marshal is dressed in the colors of New Orleans Mardi Gras. The winter white coat is a perfect complement to feature the traditional New Orleans Carnival colors of purple, gold, and green. Notice the glittering purple chemise and the accents of gold and green throughout, exploding in a glorious celebration of the season. Give it up for Grand Marshal Mardi Gras. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you, Professor Nivale.
Thank you, Professor Liuza, and thank you for this. I just found it. I have a new mantle and a new medallion.
Professor, with all that we've done, I can't help that there's something we haven't addressed.
She's absolutely correct.
She's correct. We need royalty to complete our course.
We absolutely do.
May we?
Now let's see. Which one of you looks like you've been interbred for decades? You, sir! Come and stand up for us, sir. What is your name?
Will.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present Beverly and Will. Grand Marshal for your crown and your scepter. And now we need a glorious queen. Let's see. Glorious queen. I see. Back here in the back. You, madam! Come stand right up. What is your name, madam? Beverly and Leah! Come right up. Please assume
Right
your
over
crown.
here, place this upon your head, and here is your staff. Sure, take your time. We're not going anywhere.
She's the queen.
There
She
we
can take all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to present the very first parade of the crew of Nord! Ladies back at her, if you please!
Follow me!
It's your parade! to send you home. Thank you so much for participating with us. I hope you enjoyed that little parade. Something to get you out for tonight for Tea Rex. All right, class. We're running out of time. We have time for one more question. We'll make it a good one.
All right. So, was there like a very important Mardi Gras season or something?
Yes,
Actually-
indeed there was.
There was. I think I can say, with all certainty, that the most important Mardi Gras in our Carnival heritage was the Mardi Gras of 2006.
Yes.
After Katrina and Rita and the failure of the federal levee systems that flooded the city for months and months, many of us were forced to move to other places in order to survive until we could come back and rebuild. And while we were in these foreign locales, many of us often heard from the people that lived there that New Orleans did not deserve to be saved. They said that it was underwater and it should stay there.
Tear it all down. Turn it into a parking lot.
After all, it's just New Orleans. It's not like it's important. Yes. I'd like to play you some archival footage from that particular Mardi Gras in 2006.
This was done by the AP, the Associated Press. It went all over the world, and most of this you're getting ready to see took place right above our heads on the steps and stands of Gallier Hall. Mardi Gras and Carnival 2006.
Even safety measures are risque in New Orleans. The big Mardi Gras weekend kicks off with a traditional pole greasing. A lot of crews have returned to the parade routes, but Mardi Gras is still not the same size as pre-Katrina. And if you look around, a lot of prime seating's left available.
Last year was one of the best Mardi Gras because it was for the locals, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was wonderful. It was really great. So I'm looking forward to this year and hoping this year's going to be just as good, if not better.
Traditions were altered to make sure the 2006 Carnival happened. This year, locals are trying to show the whole world how New Orleans is back on its feet.
A lot of traditions are coming back to normal, but some of them last year because they realized, well, it works.
For tourists, the prizes of Carnival are the throws. But for the locals, the prize of Mardi Gras is a $250 million boost to the economy.
The people who are here are making Carnival happen and making everything happen for all of our visitors that are coming in from across the country. It's the New Orleanians that are the true heart of Carnival.
Carnival runs through Tuesday. Then the Crescent City will be looking for another way to stay on its feet. Mark Carlson, the Associated Press, New Orleans.
Now, I made a statement all those years ago, and I'd like to amend that statement. I said back then that New Orleans were the heart of Carnival. That's still true. The heart of Carnival and Mardi Gras extends so much further than I think any of us realized at the time. The heart of Carnival is with every single person who wakes in the morning, plans their day, and goes to sleep at night with Carnival in their hearts. The heart of Carnival is every individual who puts on a mask and a costume, paints their face, and braves the weather no matter how bad or how bright in order to be part of the celebration. Those people that we talked about earlier, they weren't from here. They didn't live here. They may have visited, but they didn't understand. They didn't know. The Carnival is part of who we are. It's what informs our day-to-day lives. It's what makes us New Orleanians, Mobilians, people of the Gulf South. Heart of Carnival is everybody in this room. I see we're at this point.
Yes.
Class, I leave it to you. Should we give the next two Reveliers the chance to do a makeup exam on Monday?
Yes!
Softies, all of you. Big softies. All right, Reveliers. Monday morning, 9 a.m., I expect the both of you in my office for your makeup exam. And I expect A's from both of you.
That's 9 a.m. sharp. Got that?
Yeah.
No cheating.
Okay. Well, I guess,
That's your
Professor,
mom. She said no cheating.
that's all we got to do then is just, let's celebrate!
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. We wish all of you a very happy carnival, the happiest of Mardi Gras. And now, courtesy of King Will Samuels of the King Cake Hub, King Cake Outside!